Hi everyone, welcome back to the Comptia Network Plus course, Basic Forensic Concepts. When security instances occur on a network, a proper response is key, especially in the early stages. Computer forensic principles must be applied. These principles are specific to the nature of digital devices and the environment in which security incidents occur. From a high level, the steps in incident response area are as follows. Detect the incident, respond to the incident, report the incident to the appropriate personnel, recover from the incident, remediate all components affected by the incident to ensure that all traces of the incident have been removed, review the incident, and document all findings. In the following sections, we'll take a look at the salient details of these 6 topics. First responder. The first responder is responsible for securing the crime scene and protecting the evidence from corruption. This requires addressing the evidence in the order of volatility. Some types of data may be fragile and therefore need to be collected before other types. For example, Polaroid photo, not a digital photo, should be taken of anything shown on the computer screen, since that could go away at any time if the system goes off. Secure the area. The area should be sealed off to prevent anyone from touching or tampering with anything. Access to the crime scene should be tightly controlled and limited only to individuals who are vital to the investigation. As part of the documentation process, make sure to note anyone who has access to the crime scene. Once a crime scene is contaminated, there is no way to restore it to the original condition. Escalate when necessary. In any case where the first responder is not trained in forensics, the issue should be escalated to other personnel. In some cases it may involve calling the police, but be aware that when you do that, you may lose control of the crime scene because they will want to take over the investigation. All users should be trained in basic crime scene concepts, such as don't turn the machine off and don't touch anything. Document the scene. Everything about the scene should be recorded and documented. Polaroid pictures should be taken to show the position of everything in the scene. Diagrams can be drawn to indicate positions as well. Interviews of witnesses and first responders should be conducted as soon as possible because memory of details fade quickly. eDiscovery. In the United States, discovery is the exchange of evidence by both sides in a lawsuit. eDiscovery is simply the application of this principle to electronic documents such as email, chat records, and other electronic forms of data. When this data is identified as potentially relevant to the case, it is placed on legal hold. Then it is gathered using digital forensic procedures to prevent its contamination as evidence. Evidence data collection. When you're collecting evidence, the order of volatility is critical. Collecting it in the following order ensures that investigators get evidence from the components that are most volatile. First, the order of volatility is as follows: memory contents, swap files, network processes, system processes, file system information, raw disk blocks. You should keep a bit level copy of the system image and isolate the system from the network. When you do this, keep 2 copies of this image, one to be stored as an accurate backup copy of the evidence and the other to use to examine the image. You should create message digest hashes of the images to ensure that you can later prove that the images have not been tampered with. Chain of custody. Chain of custody records document who controlled the evidence, who secured the evidence, and who obtained the evidence to successfully prosecute a suspect. The proper chain of custody must be preserved, and the evidence must be collected following predefined procedures in accordance with all laws and regulations. Proper chain of custody ensures that all evidence is admissible in court. Data transport. When the data or evidence is being transported in any way, the process must be recorded and documented in detail. All physical evidence must be tagged, and the evidence tags must document the mode and means of transportation, a complete description of evidence including quality, who received the evidence, and who had access to the evidence. Any transmission of evidence should include a hash so the integrity of the evidence can be maintained. Forensic report. A forensics report should be created based on the findings. While evidence is being examined, any characteristics such as timestamps and identification properties should be determined and documented. Once the evidence has been fully analysed using specific methods, the full instance should be reconstructed and documented. Legal hold. During the eDiscovery process, evidence that is deemed to be possibly relevant will be placed on legal hold. This process may be initiated by a notice or communication from legal counsel to an organisation. It requires suspension of normal processing of data such as backup, tape recycling, archiving media, and using other forms of document and information storage and management. Policies and procedures. Every company should have written policies to effectively enable security on their computer networks. The policies should have the approval of the highest ranking security or IT officer within the company, and they should address all aspects of the company network. Procedures should also be in place to determine the appropriate course of action if there is a security breach, and all network administrators absolutely need to be thoroughly trained on all policies and procedures. No weak links. All of this might sound a bit militaristic in nature, but it's truly necessary. Speaking of the military, though the US Department of Defense (DoD) has some really good standards, it wouldn't hurt to keep in mind when you're setting up security policies of your own. Security policies. So what exactly is a security policy? Ideally, it should precisely define how security is to be implemented within an organisation and include physical security, document security, and network security. Plus, you have to make sure these forms of security are implemented completely and solidly, because if they aren't, your security policy will be a lot like a block of Swiss cheese. Some areas are covered, while other areas are full of holes. Because a network can be truly secured, the network support staff should post as part of the security policy that applies to employee conduct on bulletin boards. It should, for example, forbid posting of any company and or employee information that's not absolutely necessary, like, believe it or not, sticking post-its with usernames and passwords on computer screens, really clean desks, audits and recording email communications, and in some cases phone calls should also be a requirement. And don't forget to also post the consequences of not complying with the security policy. Security audit. Let me take a minute to explain all this a little more, beginning with security audits. A security audit is a thorough examination of your network that includes testing all its components to make sure everything is secure. You can do this internally, but you can also contract an audit with a third party if you want the level of security to be certified. A valid and verified consultant's audit is a good follow-up to an internal audit. One reason for having your network security certified like this is that government agencies usually require it before they'll grant you contract work, especially if that work is considered confidential secret or top secret. Clean desk policy. The clean desk policy doesn't just get rid of the crumbs from your last snack. It means requiring that all potentially important documents like books, schematics, confidential letters, notes to self and so on aren't left out in the open when someone's away from their desk. Instead, they're locked away securely out of sight. Also, make sure it's clear that this rule applies to users' PCs, desktops. Policies like this apply to offices, laboratories, workbenches, as well as desks, and it's really important for employees who share workspaces or workstations. It's super easy to nick something off someone's desk or screen because most security problems involve people on the inside implementing and enforcing a clean desk policy in a simple way to guard against security breaches. It might sound a little nitpicky, but for a clean desk policy to be effective, users have to clean up their desks every time they walk away from them without exception. The day someone doesn't will be the very day some prospective tenant is being shown the building's layout and sensitive documents suddenly disappears. You should make sure workstations are locked to desks and do random spot checks once in a while to help enforce the policy for obvious reasons. Before company picnics and parties and before bringing your child to work day are good times to do this. Recording equipment such as tape recorders, cell phones and small memory devices like USB flash memory keychains can contain sensitive confidential information, so a good security policy should prohibit their unauthorized presence and use. Just walk into almost any large technology company and you'll be immediately confronted with signs. A really common one is a camera with a circle surrounding it and a slash through the center of the circle. Read the text below the sign and you'll be informed that you can't bring any recording device onto premises. Here's a good example. The NSA has updated its policy to include prohibiting Furby dolls on government premises because they have reasonably sophisticated computers inside them complete with digital recording device. The doll repeats what it hears at a certain interval of time, which is either cute or creepy but pretty much harmless, maybe even protective in a child's daycare centre. Not so much at the NSA, though no recording conversations there. Maybe at least in some locations it's not such a good idea for your company either. Licensing restrictions. Software privacy is the unauthorized reproduction or distribution of copyrighted software. Although software piracy is a worldwide issue, it's much more prevalent in Asia, Europe, Latin America, Africa and Middle East. Security professions and organizations they work must ensure that the organization takes measures to ensure that employees understand the implications of installing pirated software. They also need to ensure that these issues are covered specifically in the security policy. In addition, large organizations might need to utilize an enterprise software inventory application that will provide administrators with a report on the software that is installed. International export controls. Many organizations today develop trade relationships with organizations that are in other countries. Organisations must be aware of the export and import laws of both the source and destination countries. Encryption technologies are some of the most restricted technologies when it comes to import and export laws. Although the United States does limit the export of encryption technologies for national security reasons, other countries such as China and Russia limit the import of these same technologies because they do not want their citizens to have access to them. Publicly available technology, including software, is exempt from most export laws except for encryption technologies. Any organization that engages in export and import activities with entities based in other countries should ensure that legal counsel is involved in the process so that all laws and regulations are followed. In addition, the organisation should implement the appropriate controls to ensure that personnel do not inadvertently violate any import and export laws, regulations or internal corporate policies. So I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing and subscribing. Thank you.